We're delighted to be joined by Richard Burke, a production specialist and site OPEX manager at Tosara Pharma Limited. Richard is a Shingo Award recipient, which is the world's highest standard of operational excellence. He's over 27 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry. And in this session, he's going to be talking about Smed and how that can help us to save time and money and increase capacity. So Richard, I'll let you introduce yourself properly, but just want to say thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, that's great, Julie. And yeah, good morning, everybody. Just a quick introduction before we start. My name is Richard Burke. I work in Tosara Pharma. I've obviously 27 years experience in the industry. I'm married. My wife Sandra, I have 4 kids. And yeah, I enjoy a lot of different things. I enjoy obviously sports, so it was great looking at the Kerry match there at the weekend and Limerick the week before. So great results there for both counties and great enjoyment. I have a dog, a golden retriever, so I like to walk the dog. And yeah, I've developed myself over the last number of years in different lean tools. So I'm delighted this morning to be asked by Julie and Veronica and Stuart to join the session this morning and try and give people some insights into the knowledge that I've gained over the last 27 years. So yeah, we'll get into the presentation. Okay, just a little bit slow here. Yeah, okay. So today's objectives obviously is to understand Shingo's methodology, focus on the process. So again, looking at the different areas of Smed, identify internal and external activities, convert as many of these activities into either internal or external, look for ways to shorten both, standardize and train our people, and then obviously start all over again. So, you know, in the little picture there, you know, there's a couple of little buzzwords. You know, it's a process improvement tool. It has huge benefits to the organization, you know, whether it's reducing costs, lead time, product quality to the customer. You know, it's a tool for growth. As part of the process, you know, we need to analyze where the root cause of the constraints are. We need to understand the process from start to finish. We need to proceduralize it. And it is a method, it is a discipline. SMED is a discipline that, you know, brings great benefits to the culture. It's a culture enabling tool because it brings in so many different departments: engineering, quality, operations, supply chain. So it's a vast range of I suppose areas where people can get involved, and it helps to build that unique culture to be focused on continuous improvement and operational excellence. So that's it. So if we move on now, hopefully people will enjoy. And as Julie said, if you want to stop me at any time, if you want to raise your hand, or even use your mic just to ask a question as I'm going through, then I'll stop and I'll try and answer the question that's raised. So
Yeah,
okay,
brilliant.
Julie.
Thanks, Emil. Richard, I was just going to say, as you were talking there, we just had a poll up just asking people if they use SMED at the moment. And so 21% were saying yes, that they currently do. 32% said no. 32% said they weren't sure. And then a further 16% said no, but they plan to in the future. So there's quite a kind of even split between either people using it or wanting to use it, or not using it or not sure if they're using it.
Okay, so again, hopefully I've tried to cover a diverse range of industries. So it's not just focused on engineering or manufacturing. It can also be used in the service industry. So yeah, it's a methodology. So what was Shingo's methodology? What was his reasoning behind developing the SMED program? So again, it was developed by Shingo in the 60s in Japan. So he focused on improving efficiency and productivity. He also considered reducing costly inventory, scrap and rework. he also understood the need to respond quicker to the customers. So we talk about customers for life. So if we're producing the right quality at the right time, um, then we have our customers coming back each time looking for more. So again, reducing the lead time in delivery, and also keeping a competitive edge over competitors. So, in today's world, it's very competitive. We have costs, we have overheads, we have stakeholder investment, we have shareholder investment. So it's very important, no matter what industry you're in, to keep a competitive edge over our competitors, and obviously keep employment within Ireland. And I think we're very good at that. And I think this type of event is a great opportunity to help companies understand the challenges that they face. So a little quote from Shingo is, when he developed the process, when he was thinking about the methodology, he made a statement to say that any piece of equipment can be changed in single digits, so i.e. less than 10 minutes. So back in the 50s and 60s, I think they thought he was from outer space. They couldn't understand that this man could actually come up with a methodology that would achieve those results. But as we go through the program and the presentation, you'll see that he wasn't too far wrong. Okay, so if we move on. So just to sort of start us off, I thought this was a nice introduction just to outside of the manufacturing industry. I suppose this is a service industry. How long does it take to receive a passport? So we all like to go on holidays. We know now that there's a lot of backlog and constraints after COVID. No matter what business we're in, whether it's in supply chain with the purchasing and supply of raw materials, in the service industry with staff shortages, working remotely. But I just done a quick research on this, and the latest data says between 8 to 11 weeks by post. So if we're applying for a new passport, that's the lead time. If we're applying online, it's 25 days or 5 weeks. And then I thought, like, I'll throw in if we were renewing our child's passport along with our own, and that can take up to 3 to 4 months as well. So, that's just a sort of introduction of the customer, keeping the customer happy. So I don't think many people now are happy with that lead time. And there's probably opportunities there within the passport, I suppose, service that, where Smed is introduced, how many handoffs do we have? How long does it take, to go from the postal system into the passport office? And then, how many people touch the application before it's actually approved for printing, and so on and so on. So I think that's just a nice slide just to start off to try and, keep people's mind open. And that's the reason for this session is, be open to, I suppose, thinking of your own processes where you see our bottlenecks and constraints and how can you improve. And that's the whole idea that Smed brings. And, it uses many different tools, as I'll share with you. But it's also, as I said, a way of reducing the waste. So yeah, so when we talk about lean, I like to call it as operational excellence. I know a lot of people hear this lean word, and sometimes it can turn them off the whole idea because they think there's a lot of work involved. But if you use the term operational excellence, I think that's a more it's a neutral, more, I suppose, encouraging term. So the 8 deadly wastes, we know that defects. So again, when we look at defects, what causes defects? So it could be down to the process. It could be, overproducing poorly written documents, or it could be inadequate completion of documentation, equipment failure. Overproduction, we talk about duplicating effort. We talk about making extra copies. We also not producing to our customer in demand, and poor reliability and planning. So again, that could be possibly root causes. Waiting, again, waste of time. So waiting means obviously delaying people. So it's lack of clear deadlines, lack of, I suppose, work flow, um, too much inventory built up in different locations. And obviously, it's not passing material or units or documentation through the system in a unified manner. This is a big one to me. It's non-utilizing talent. So, people are great when they're working in a company. They know the business, they know what they're doing, and sometimes we don't focus on their own development. We don't focus on the skills or the knowledge that they may have. So again, SMED is a great opportunity to bring people together and to obviously, share knowledge and discuss problems and come up with solutions. Transportation then is obviously, again, in using SMED as a methodology, it's moving or searching for things. It's not, it's looking for stuff that can't be found, whether it's tools, parts, documents. So we waste a lot of time in transportation. Our inventory then is building up materials or documentation at a location where, it's not being paid for by the customer, it's not getting out to the customer. And that could be a result of staff shortages, poor equipment performance, or maybe in some cases fear of equipment performance. So we build up a lot of inventory because we don't have that, I suppose, knowledge and consistency in performance. Again, motion is moving stuff from place to place. That's not adding value, and the customer is willing to pay for. So again, SMED is a great tool to look at movement of people, movement of materials, movement of documentation, and how can we reduce that? And then the extra processing then is basically, it's around the whole rework situation where we might have too many defects, we might have incorrect documentation, and we're over processing or we're doing extra processing. So when you look at the 8 wastes, I suppose from start to finish, it actually spells downtime. So yeah, if we move on. So when I say focus on the process, how do we start off our SMED journey? What's important? How do we engage people? How do we develop a culture? So I just used that photograph there. I think that's a great one there of the last couple of weeks where, the customer was queuing up to go to the airport to get out on their holidays, bringing their families, and they ran into a problem, and just the build up just caused chaos everywhere. So Shingo's methodology was that you need to first analyze the process at the Gemba. So that means getting down into the area and watching what's happening. We've used video footage in our own process, and it just helps to look at the whole process from start to finish. So it helps to see the movement of people, the movement of materials, where delays are. So you're analyzing the process at the Gemba, and it's a great initiation into SMED. So once we see that and we start to study that, we can then distinguish activities as either internal or external activities. And I'll explain that as we go on. And then the purpose of then converting as many internal activities to external. And what I mean by that is that, in the internal activity is when the process comes to a complete stop. So, external activities can be done in advance. It could be preparation of documentation. It could be preparation of parts and equipment. It could be people preparation. It could be communication, notification. All these type of things we can put into the bucket of external. And that does help, again, in the preparation for SMED. And, you'll see in the Formula One, it's a great example, when a car is in the race and, cars are whizzing down the track, there is an external activity where the team are talking to the driver. They know exactly what time he's coming in at and exactly what, the changeover would be if it's dry tires to wet tires or vice versa. So there's a lot of communication needs to happen outside of the internal activities. So then as part of that, we need to develop rigorous solutions to reduce both internal and external activities. And that's where, the culture enabling side comes in, where we talk to people with experience and we suggest improvements. And between everybody, that's where we come up with the solutions. So once we have solutions, then we take risks and we standardize and we train and we go with the process. Sorry, there's a bit of noise here. Can I just hang on for a second, Julie? I just need to
Yeah, we can't really hear
close
it.
the window here. Sorry for a
Oh
second.
yeah, no worries, you're grand. Yeah, it was that story about the airport is kind of resonating with me. I was in the airport recently and I could see some, there was some manager who kind of came in and just was like reacting as the crowds kind of changed. And he's like, okay, we need to move this here. We need to have these people there. And, I was like, okay, I feel much more, reassured that it was in good hands. I was just saying there, Richard, about just my own recent experience at the airport. It was definitely someone was at the Gemba and kind of moving things around and like reacting as the crowds are changing. So yeah, so that was resonating with me anyway.
Yeah. So again, just it brings a lot of, I suppose, panic, and the customer at the end of the day, the customer is the priority. So yeah, so we return to the start and we repeat the process, because again, like operational excellence is a journey. It's something that is evolving all the time, and that's where the culture comes in, because people become energized and engaged. We set targets and we aim for those targets, and if we achieve those targets, then we move on and try and reduce it again, and we start the process from start to finish. So again, if we move on. So just some definitions around SMED, just for people that mightn't actually practice SMED. So what is a changeover? So a changeover is the time that elapses between one product type to another, to the specified quality at the right speed or tack time. Internal setup. So an internal setup can only happen, and it's the time to change when a process is stopped or halted. External setup activity, these are the activities that can be completed in advance. So it's again thinking outside the box. And we also use a term ramp up period. So again, the time when everything is running consistently without delays or stoppages. And then an important note is full ramp up is not achieved until until running at full capacity with excellent quality at the beat of the customer. So again, it's just, I suppose, SMED, the methodology is, we stop, we change, we get back up and running, and we produce what we need to produce to the beat of the customer as the customer requires. So they're just some definitions. Okay. So I'll start off by obviously, when we looked at SMED in Baldoyle, we started in 2009, and we're still practicing SMED today. And we've achieved our changeover. Used to take 8 hours, and we're now down to less than an hour. So we've increased our capacity, we've increased our, I suppose, our customer range, and we've also been able to adapt to the constraints now with supply chain and materials, so where we can switch from one size to another and one formulation to another very quickly, depending on the constraints that we face. So the first step obviously is the start and end of the changeover process. So no matter what process you're looking at, it has a start point and it has an end point. So it's identifying the individual activities within the process, so the overall process. So again, as I said to you, we've used a camera where we went to the Gemba, and we looked at all aspects, from the time of the last good product that passed through the line to the first good product from the next campaign. So that's the start and finish points. And what we done was we used, I suppose, brown paper, and we mapped out the process. We used different color post-its to say, is this an internal or external activity? And that was a great culture enabling tool, that we got everybody into the room, because sometimes there's people are doing activities that go unnoticed, or people aren't aware of the next step in the process, and if they're not probably meeting a deadline, what impact it has with the next customer. So again, that's just I suppose an introduction. And now we go to the next phase of the process, where we distinguish between internal and external activity. So again, just highlighting here, it's just a simple visual aid here, just highlighting which is internal, which is external. I've used two pictures here. I thought was, I suppose, a good introduction. When we're talking about, again, traveling away, when we load our luggage in, what happens to that when we go into the departure lounge? So is the person that's responsible for loading the luggage, is he sitting in place on the runway waiting for the plane to arrive, or is he sitting in the terminal and the plane arrives and the plane gets delayed because he's not out on time. So again, I think it's just, it's a good example. So the benefits of identifying the internal external activities is it helps identify individual stages. It supports the timing of each stage. So again, as part of the process, we need to understand what the cycle is. How long does each cycle take? How many operators involved? Who's involved? So again, it's a great way of developing our knowledge and allows activities to be grouped. So sometimes there's overlap in what people are doing, and it mightn't be widely known at the time, but when we're looking to reduce the lead time, we can actually look at merging groups and merging activities. So again, it's a great culture enabling activity. Again, if we move on. So then what we need to do is we need to say to ourselves, okay, we understand the process, we know where it starts, we know where it finishes, we understand the internal and the external activities. So then we need to group them, and we need to, separate them into both. And then we need to identify, as part of the learning activity, what can happen before the changeover, what happens actually when the changeover starts and finishes, and then again, trying to compress these. So as I said, communication is a very important aspect of SMED, that the right people know what they have to do when they have to do it. Moving parts, having parts close to the line in advance of the changeover. So we see that in the Formula One, where the crew are actually on the pit lane before the car arrives, so they're not coming out of the garage as the car has stopped and looking for stuff. They're actually physically present. And there's a lot of things that you can look at as an external activity when you're focusing in on SMED. And then the internal activities then are the actual physical changes. So what do we do? Is it documentation sign off? Is it changing out parts? Is it stamping? Is it approval of documentation? These are the actual internal activities. So we're waiting for the process to move on at this stage. So again, when we look at both, the lead time is the same at the moment. So the next objective then is to try and compress each of these activities and reduce them through operational excellence. So is everybody okay with what I'm presenting so far? If you want to ask a question, or if you want to stop me, feel free to do so. Um, I hope I'm making sense to people, and that have an open mind. As I said, it's not just an engineering function; it's something that could be done in an office. And I'll show you some examples again as we move on. Okay. So to reduce the time of both the internal and external activities, a great approach, and again, why I talk about SMED as a great tool, a great lean tool in operational excellence, is because it brings in other tools. And process mapping is a great visual management tool to help the team understand, the current process. So the benefits of process mapping is we can assess each element and its cycle time. We can identify bottlenecks and constraints. We can work together as a team and generate ideas for improvement. Um, we measure the cycle time and the lead time. So what is the actual current state? What are we looking at? What's the challenge? What's the deadline that we're trying to achieve? It builds togetherness, so great teamwork, because as I said, as part of SMED, we have different functions within the organization, and they have knowledge and they understand what their part in the puzzle is. So bringing them together builds great teamwork. And then it helps the entire team, to understand the process from end to end or start to finish. So visual management and using visual management value stream mapping is another phase within SMED. And that's why I say it's a discipline, it's a journey, and it takes time. And when it's done right, the benefits are huge. Okay, so if we move to the next. So after we've identified the current state, and again, it's just throwing up a piece of brown paper, getting people into a room, open questions, asking people for their opinions. we come up with what a future state map is. And this is where, it's time now to start taking the challenge and start taking risks. And, it can be, sometimes we found when we developed our Smed, especially in the manufacturing industry, it can lead to a little bit of concern, where people feel that their jobs are threatened. If I'm an engineer and I pass over the responsibility to an operator to change out a piece of equipment, are they going to be able to conduct the changeover according to the engineer standards? And what we found was it actually does happen. People work and they buddy up with each other, they share knowledge, they build a relationship, and they develop their own knowledge. So what happens actually in the longer term is that the ownership then becomes part of the people that actually are part of the physical changeover. And the rewards are brilliant for the individual, also for the engineers, because they actually can see that they can go off and do higher level maintenance. And it does bring a great wealth of experience and knowledge to get to that level. But there is that reciprocation that comes back from the operators, which they learn how to fix machines without having to call engineers, because they get familiar with the setup. So again, it helps compress both internal and external activities. It reduces motion and time. So again, being in the right place at the right time in preparation. It also reduces transportation. It standardizes the process. It builds great agility and flexibility into the operation. So again, as we see in Tosara, we're having constraints with different materials, and where we might have to do a quick change, and we can adapt to that change very quickly, and continue the manufacturing process. So again, a similar, I suppose, analogy is in the Formula One race, where they start off and it's nice and dry, and then it starts to rain, and they have to come in and change the tires quickly. They can adapt very quickly. So also it reduces the cycle time and lead time. It improves flow to the customer. I think this is the big value of Smed as well. It's all about customer focus. It's getting the product to the customer on time with the correct quality and the quantity that they're looking for. So again, that's a great aspect. And finally, it builds capabilities and teamwork. So now that we're aware of the process, we've understand the start and finish point, we've mapped it out, we've built up the team, we've got that level of knowledge. It's time now to start practicing and take risks, and just go at it and see what the results show up. And the whole idea of continuous improvement is to analyze what the results come up with. So if you move on. So again, as I said, we've now started to shorten the internal external activities from the improvements that we've come up with, from the suggestions that's been made, from the trials that we've done. And again, just a sort of visual, we can see that the current lead time on top was quite long. And through our continuous improvement process, and using people's knowledge and thinking about it in a different type of mindset, we've actually started to compress the lead time. So it does automatically start to reduce. So I'm going to show you now in the next couple of slides other lean tools that can be used that helps in supporting the compression of those activities. So you can see here on the top left hand corner, this would have been our parts changeover cage during our initial Smed development. And then what we done was we came up with a solution that we said, look, we need to be able to put our hands on these fairly quickly. We need to be able to find them very easily. And we developed a new shadow board, and we also put it on wheels. So again, like the drivers coming in off the pit stop, the wheels are there beside the pit lane waiting for the car to arrive. So it just reduces time, motion, and it also helps, I suppose, to find things easily and very visual. In an office environment, you can see there on the bottom left, when we talk about documentation coming through the system and handoffs between one review and the second review, sometimes people's workstations can cause delays, and that does have an impact on the changeover or the lead time. And 5S is a great tool to actually put a discipline in, where when you're looking at the office there on the bottom right, we have trays, we have a clean desk, we can find things easy, we have an inbox, an outbox. And again, these are all the principles of Smed. So that's a great tool to help compress internal and external activities. We can move on. So then when we talk about standardizing and training people, once we've reached a standard and we understand, how to do the changeover, how to have things in position, we use either job breakdown work instructions or visual work instruction manuals. So again, if you look at IKEA, when you go to buy a compressed unit, um, when you open the pack, there's a work instruction there, and it helps you to actually put the unit together. And that's the same in any working environment, whether it's in an office. If you're moving a passport through the system, there's a standard work that needs to be applied, and then we train people up on what the standard work is. If it's in an engineering environment, again, we identify the changes that's in sequence of the particular assets, we document them, we have clear visual instructions and simple text, and we train people up. And that's the next stage in moving the Smed in the right direction. Okay. The other side of it then is obviously we need to, as we do the cycles of SMED, we go back into the room, we analyze the performance, we look at the lead time, we set the targets. Are we meeting the targets? What worked well? What didn't work well? And it's a continuous cycle of continuous improvement. We might need to focus again on our visual management. We might need to go back and revisit our SMED, and we might need to look at our communication channels. So it's encompassing all these lean tools or operational excellence tools. And there's one there, and I just looked at the passport. So we have the app now. We can go online when we're applying online, which is great. And we can see where we are with our lead time. In manufacturing, we can look at our changeover cycle time. We can focus on the lead time, but also we can use different tools like OEE, equipment effectiveness, and we can also look at our schedule adherence. So there is many tools there that we can analyze. Are we actually achieving what we've set out to achieve? And you can see there the best in the world of Formula One, how they analyze and they monitor performance. And it's a continuous cycle of people working together, sharing their knowledge, sharing results, and identifying how can they improve. So again, measuring performance is a key aspect of SMED. And then, as I said, we start all over again. So again, you can see here, this is off season. So the team are together, they're looking at the driver, they're looking at the tires, they're analyzing the trends. In Tosara, again, we sort of looked at our SMED as we were bringing the time down. We used another tool, our fishbone analysis tool. We use A3, and we use the make. And again, it's just analyzing what the results are showing us, and have we moved the goalpost from where it was originally to where we set it, and how can we move it then again? So as I said, it took us from 2009 to get from 8 hours down to less than an hour, and that was just a continuous cycle of continuous, I suppose, sharing of knowledge, sharing of results, identifying what went well, what didn't go well, and just keep moving forward. Um, okay, and the next is just the key takeaways. So I'd just like to, just before we go through the key takeaways, and also we have a short video at the end. I'd just like to mention a few people that have helped me along the way in my career. So I suppose last year I qualified out of the Southeast University, WIT. And I'd just like to mention Darren Taylor and Aidan Walsh. Aidan was my dissertation supervisor, and my focus was on SMED. That's where I graduated on. And they run a master's program down in Waterford, and I would highly recommend people that are really serious about SMED and continuous improvement and operational excellence to have a look at that program starting in September. Also, one of the biggest inspirations to me is Noel Hennessy. I went in 2009 down to Lake Region, And Noel was there as the operational director, and he sort of introduced me to the whole concept of lean operational excellence, Smed, quick changeover, customer focus. So, again, get in touch with Noel if you're looking for some support. I also like to mention Ailish Henry. Ailish Henry was a great support to Tosara and to myself in the whole Shingo journey. So again, Shingo being the standard of excellence that we all like to achieve. I'd also like to mention Steve Halpin. Steve Halpin is a consultant that I've done a lot of time and work with here in Dublin. And Steve runs Lean Teams. So again, there's great opportunities to reach out to these people for their knowledge and their experience. And there is grants available through the IDA and through Enterprise Ireland for new startup companies to get in touch with these people. And then finally, I'd like to mention obviously Stuart and Julie in Jigsaw and Veronica. Again, they run this program, and it's a great knowledge sharing platform, and they have a wealth of experience as well working with different companies. So again, I think it's very important, and I'd like to thank them for helping me in my journey and being able to present to you this morning of what I've learned. So before we go into the video, just a couple of key takeaways from this morning's presentation, and I hope people got something out of it. If you got one or two ideas from this morning, then I think that's a start. So you're actually better off from where you were before the presentation. So we know that Smed encompasses a couple of key factors. It reduces inventory and costs. So again, supply chain and planning partnerships is critical in this aspect of Smed. Improve services, competitiveness, and lead time. So again, the main focus is all about being sustainable, continuing to meet our customer demand. As I said at the start, customers for life, that's the key. So moving the trends in the right direction, and also delivers quality product to the customer on time. So SMED is a huge part of quality because, done right first time, the product reducing waste, reducing motion, scrap is a huge part. So, it's important to bring our quality team into our SMED program, and that just builds up that level of trust. So, as I said, it builds agility and flexibility. And as I said, of course, there's no shortcuts in the pursuit of excellence. We've been on this journey for well over 10 to 15 years. And, we're still every day, we're still learning more, we're still trying to improve. And just a quote at the end before the video, the application of SMED makes it possible for companies to respond quickly to customer fluctuations in demand while reducing lead time in manufacturing, giving better time to market. So I think, we've a lot to thank Shigeo Shingo for back in the 50s and 60s. And, at the time when he was developing SMED, I don't think he realized himself how much of an influence it can have on businesses, on customers, and on the bottom line. So that's it from me, Julie. I know there's a video there, and I think I titled it Anything is Possible. Again, just before we share that, I actually researched what is the actual world record at the moment for a Formula One pit stop, and I actually was surprised myself. So yeah, I think it's 1.82 seconds. So I think Shigeo was right that anything can be done in less than 10 minutes. He's got it down to seconds.
Brilliant.
So,
Yeah, I'll pop that on now in just a second. Thank you very much, Richard.
yeah.
I think everyone probably took quite a lot from that. I even really liked as well what you just said at the end of, the fact that, yeah, you might have been doing this for years, but you're still learning every day, and I think that's probably encouraging for people that regardless of where they are on that journey of operational excellence, that there's no end point really, so and like you mentioned as well about, reaching out to each other, that it is again really important to know that there is that sort of community or network. I mean, that's sort of why we're here today, is that to have that community again, regardless of where any of you are on that journey, that you can always kind of benefit from connecting with people and learning from each other. If you have any questions, I can see a couple of comments just coming in, just saying thank you and that your presentation was excellent. But if anyone does have any questions, do absolutely pop them into the chat. I might just show that video, and then if there was any questions in the next couple of minutes, we can come back to those. Okay, so I'll just start playing.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
I think that's a brilliant video that just really illustrates it so clearly. Yeah, watching it the first video, you're like, come on, because I've gotten used to how quick it is. That is brilliant. So yeah, I was just looking there at the comments, everyone just saying, yeah, it's really, really good to learn about that. Is it possible to get the link to the video? Do you think maybe you could share that with me, Richard, and I can share that with everyone?
Yeah, well, it's on YouTube, Julie. So when you type in Smed into YouTube, you'll get a lot of videos there, and you get that one there. So
Perfect. Yeah.
it's easy accessible. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, Mairead was just looking for that. I'll be sending out a video after this session, which will just have the slides, the recording for anyone who missed it, and yeah, any kind of resources that people can avail of. I'll just signpost. I don't think anyone has any questions at the moment. If you do think of anything, do pop it into the chat or raise your hand, but I'll just give people a heads up for what's coming up for our next event on the 10th of August. So I suppose you kind of touched a little bit, Richard, there on, how I suppose it's important to kind of build a team. We saw that pit crew communicating really effectively. And when we think about kind of the future of work and how things are so competitive, it's about thinking about what kind of skills we might need to future-proof ourselves and deal with that rapid pace of change, all the kind of diversity and uncertainty and diverse or dispersed teams as well. So in that kind of world, we need to ensure that we're positively contributing to the workplace. So emotional intelligence, those are those emotional and social skills that kind of make us uniquely human. So they're a lot harder to automate or go without. So we'll be talking about emotional intelligence on the 10th of August. It's that really wide range of skills that help you in any socially or emotionally demanding situation, whether that's playing a sport, communicating with your team, raising children, whatever it might be. So we'll be touching on those skills to help us kind of cope with our changing and challenging environments. And as always, do absolutely keep in touch. As we said, it's a community where we're trying to learn and communicate with each other. So if you scan that QR code, or if you just follow us on any of the social media channels. We're on Eventbrite as well, which is where we usually post the upcoming events. So I'll hang on for another couple of minutes. I can see in the chat there are, Veronica's just popped in some of the links for the next couple of events. There's a LinkedIn group as well. But there's a couple of questions there, Richard, that have come in. Martin was asking, can SMED be applied to a construction project site location where multiple variations exist, especially between project teams and suppliers?
Yeah, of course. So again, the methodology of SMED is to reduce wasteful activities, understand your process. So on a construction site, we need to, again, map out, the start of the project, who's the key stakeholders are, what their input into the project is, what value do they bring to the overall project. And then timeline, setting targets and timelines. So again, it's a cycle. It's one process leads into another. Is there activities on the building site that can be converted from internal to external? Whether it's contacting contractors in advance, making sure that they're there at the right time. Internal activities is, if we set a target for a build to take place in a certain amount of time, are we achieving that target? Our snag list, again, is that an internal external activity? Are we checking for defects as we're working in the changeover process, or do we do that as an external activity which causes delays? Approval of materials is materials arriving on time. So if we have the engineers and we have the builders on site, are the materials coming to them at the right time? Are they standing waiting for materials? So there's a huge spread of opportunity within the construction where SMED can be applied. And as I said, it's just about the methodology, it's about the thinking behind SMED. What is it that we're trying to achieve? And obviously then if we meet our targets, we reduce our costs, and we're more efficient.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And Noel had a question as well, just saying, if you were looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, that's a great question from Noel. Yeah, I suppose, look, as I said to it, it's a journey. It's not something that you do in sports and then, you think you've achieved your target and then, old habits come back. It is a discipline, so it needs to be, it needs to be monitored. It needs leadership. Leadership is such a huge, important aspect of SMED as well. To have the right guidance, to have the right people there, to be on the gemba, actually watching what's happening. Because what we found was we put in all this SMED, I suppose, practice and methodology. And then people start to come a little bit complacent and old habits start to come back in. So our 5S program might have slipped slightly. So again, we went looking for tools. We couldn't find tools. Somebody put a part in their pocket and at the end of their shift walked off and the other shift came in. So there are huge areas for looking back that we could have improved, and that's what we're doing today. We're trying to update our shadow boards, update our work instruction manuals, again bringing our engineers in. So not only do we focus on SMED, we focus on preventive maintenance, so making sure that when the changeover happens that the equipment runs as designed. So we've incorporated visual management checks and TPM, total productive maintenance. So yeah, no, yeah, we've learned, but I mean, the only way, as you know, that you learn is trial and error, and get back into the room and just find out what went well, what didn't go well. But yeah, we probably would have spent a lot more time with leadership at the Gemba.
Okay, really interesting. So I think that seems to be all of the questions. I just want to say thanks again, Richard, so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, being very generous with your time. And thank you everyone as well who dialed onto the call. It's not always easy to take time out to learn something new, develop yourself, develop your business. So do absolutely, I think, keep in touch with all of us at Jigsaw, and I'm sure Richard, you'd be happy to chat to anyone. But yeah, I suppose we can wrap up there. I'll hang on in case anyone has any final sort of questions or comments. But for now, I'll just say thank you again, Richard, and looking forward to hopefully seeing a lot of you at our next event on the 10th of August.
Thank you.
Thanks.